if Biden loses, I think the popular narrative will be, oh, he was too old. He should have just gotten out. The age thing killed him. And there's obviously truth to that. I mean, most Americans see him and they think he's too old. I mean, he's going to be 82. But I think he could overcome that and still could. But the double whammy of that plus immigration, I think, is really hurting him because if everything was under control with immigration or relatively so, and it had improved, and the economy, as we said, is getting better, even though prices are still high, I think that would be a pretty compelling case to make that, hey, he's really old. Maybe he's not quite what he was, but things are pretty stable. But people see the chaos at the border on TV. And it's not just on Fox News. It's become a mainstream issue because it's been so bad for so long. And people know that he could have done more. And like as I said, I think he will take some executive action here in the next few weeks because they know how bad it is. But it's 3 years too late. And the numbers are so bad. And Governor Abbott in Texas busing migrants to other cities was really smart politically, whether you agree with it or not, because it spread the pain of having to deal with this problem away from just border states and put it in big cities and made it more of a national issue. When Eric Adams in New York City, the mayor, starts talking about how big of a problem it is. And so that the salience of that issue and Biden's inability to fix it in any way is really a major problem for him. I will say, I think going to the border last week, I watched his speech on the border. I thought it was good. And I thought he made the right argument, the best argument he can make now, which is I supported a bill and helped negotiate a bill that would really dramatically reform this asylum process, which is the core of this issue. And every Republican supported that bill by and large, and it would have passed both the House and Senate. And I would have signed it, but Donald Trump came out against it and blocked it, and he did it for purely political reasons, which is true. So that is the argument Biden can make. It's not as if he doesn't have anything on that issue, but man, and I say this with pretty much every issue right now, is Biden up to how aggressively you have to make that argument? Because a presidential campaign is about a lot of things: money, advertising, events out of your control. There's so many things that factor into a campaign, and it's going to be a long campaign. Usually we don't have both nominations wrapped up this early. So this is going to be a long 8-month campaign. But one of the most important things, maybe the most important, is the actual performance of the candidate. How does the candidate respond to attacks? Can he deliver the attacks? Can he explain things to people in a way that frames his arguments in the best light and really goes after the other guy? Because as we've talked about, with Donald Trump, it is a target rich environment. You have a lot of things you can go after him on, even on his strong issues like immigration, as I said, but you have to be effective in making that argument. And I just don't know if Biden can do it.
Yeah, I also think on immigration that Democrats and some of these talking heads are out of touch on this issue. I don't know if you saw this last night. And it's important I rip on both sides, okay? And both sides of the cable media landscape. So I just like usual, I saw this on Twitter, but it was a clip of MSNBC. And so Jen Psaki was on the show and some other women. I can't remember exactly, but I don't know if you saw this, but they were kind of talking and they were almost flabbergasted that I think in Virginia that immigration was the top issue. And this was a short clip. I didn't watch the whole thing. But they were basically kind of joking like, yeah, Virginia has a border with West Virginia. And they were kind of joking like, why would you care about immigration? Why would you care about the border if you're not a border state? And then the person that I saw that quote tweeted this particular video, they said, Lake and Riley live something like 1,200 miles from the border. And if that doesn't hit you right there, and so when I saw this little clip, and I'll be the first one to admit, I hardly watch any really TV. I'm watching streaming shows for my kids, but I really don't watch cable news. I don't watch really any of them. But when I saw this little clip, I go, man, you are really out of touch with how normal folks feel, and even people in the middle and Democrats on immigration, which is why Fetterman is now a hero of the right for just saying, why don't we care about border security? You know what I'm saying?
It's true. The line is, and I think it's an effective line, every state is a border state. And
Hmm.
What you're pointing out when people say, why didn't Biden do this earlier? It's not like he was unaware of the issue when he came into office. I mean, the guy's been around for 50 years in Washington, right? It's not like it's like, oh, immigration. What are we even? He ran against Donald Trump. So the question is, why in 3 years has he not done anything up until negotiating the Senate deal and now the likely legislative action, executive action he's going to take probably in the next few months? Why did he wait so long? What you said is exactly the answer. It's because of the ignorance and the power of that base in the Democratic Party that really thinks that immigration is not really that big of a deal, A, and that B, to the extent it is a big deal, that it's good to let more people in and let people claim asylum, right? Because we are a welcoming country. We want to take people in. We don't want to be mean like Trump was. And that is such a colossal mistake. Again, if he loses, people will talk about the age, but I think it will not be because of the age primarily. I think it will be because of immigration and his inability to deal with it because of this, what we've seen. People don't, even if you support immigration, I will put myself in this camp. I am very pro immigrant. I think we need more legal immigration, particularly given the incredibly low birth rate in
Mhm.
America right now. We're below replacement level in births. Our birth rate has been dropping and dropping and dropping. That is a trend that's not likely to stop. If anything, it's going to get worse. Our population's getting older. We need more immigrants. And this is where I would disagree with Trump because he's not huge on letting more legal immigration in. I would the compromise to me is obvious is you crack down exceptionally hard on illegal immigration, you reform asylum, and you boost more legal immigration to give people pathways to come here legally. That is what we should be talking about and what we should be doing. And so I think it's a colossal mistake by the Democrats. If you have chaos on the border, people may not like Trump, some people, but they will vote for him just because they think he will fix it. And
Mhm.
Americans don't, it doesn't make them racist. It doesn't make them xenophobic to want a secure border. And I think for so long, Democrats just had their head in the sand in this issue because in their bubble, in the silos that we've talked about before that everybody's in, that's the opinion, what you just pointed out that was said on MSNBC. That's how they feel. And they're in such a bubble when it comes to this issue that they didn't see what was obvious to the majority of Americans.
I do think, though, to be fair, that it's gotten much, much worse. And I do think for many years and some of these election cycles, I think it's fair to say Republicans, they kind of demagogued the border. Like I would almost laugh where come election season, and look, on the other side, they'll say, yeah, there was always a race riot that summer of the election. Well, there was also always all the stories of the migrant caravans every year, right when these elections took place. And so did I always think the border was an important issue? Yes. But I think sometimes the coverage years ago, where that's all you see on certain networks, didn't necessarily reflect the actual problem at times. Whereas now, and I think people need to remember, I had this kind of debate on the radio this morning. Look, the border's never been great. Now, it was better under Trump. Remember, in 2020, the border was essentially closed for COVID. So anytime you compare numbers to 2020 of anything, by the way, crime, immigration, it's not fair whatsoever because the whole world was turned upside down. There's a lot of stats
Right.
that make no sense from 2020. But what I'm saying is, I'm a person who always thought the border was an important issue, but I always thought it was years past, demagogued by the Republican Party. I think now it's clearly gotten so much worse and it's so obvious. And it's also the images we're seeing on cell phone video. And as you said, it's touching everybody, not just the Lake and Riley, but all of the sanctuary cities. That has been a smart political move. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to just kind of say like, oh, now Democrats, pulled their head out of the sand. I know that's not what you meant, but I think it's just really bad now. Like it has gotten so much worse under Biden that it's very obvious.
It is. You're right. And I think that's part of the complacency that developed on the Democratic side, but they were so slow to realize when the numbers were getting really bad because it's been happening for a while now. And it peaked in December with over, 300,000 people in 1 month, which is just absurd.